Self-love won't save you. I know that's not what you expected to hear, especially from someone who is supposed to help you understand yourself better. But I've watched too many women spend years pursuing self-love as if it were a destination, a place they'd eventually arrive at if they did enough work, read enough books, said the right things to themselves in the mirror. And I can't keep pretending that the version of self-love most people are selling is the thing that actually changes anything. Because here's what I've noticed. The women who struggle most with self-love aren't the ones who don't know it's important. They know. They've been told. They've written it in journals, repeated it in therapy, posted it on their walls. They just don't feel it. And the gap between knowing you should love yourself and actually experiencing what that means, that gap is where most people quietly give up and conclude that they're simply not capable of it. Thoughtful. Tonight, I want to talk about what self-love actually is, not the version that gets sold, the version that works, and why the distance between those two things might be the most important thing you'll hear in a long time. I spent years thinking self-love meant feeling good about myself. I worked at it. The way you work at something you've been told matters. And I kept hitting the same wall, that the feeling was available sometimes, in certain conditions, and completely absent in others. And I couldn't understand why the work wasn't producing something more stable. It took me a long time to realize I had been working on the wrong thing entirely. Let's start with the version of self-love that doesn't work. You know this version. It lives in the language of affirmations and morning routines. It tells you to speak kindly to yourself, to set boundaries, to choose yourself, to know your worth. None of that is wrong. But it's downstream of something more fundamental. And when people try to build it without the foundation, it collapses under any real pressure. A difficult conversation, a rejection, a relationship that confirms the old fear. The affirmation crumbles, the boundary dissolves, and the woman is left feeling not just unloved, but like a failure at self-love, which is somehow worse. A client I'll call Tess came to me after 3 years of what she described as intensive personal development work. She had done everything: therapy, journaling, meditation. She had a morning routine that would exhaust most people. She told me, "I know all the right things to say to myself. I just don't believe any of them." That's not a failure of effort. That's a misunderstanding of what the work actually is. The reframe: self-love is not a feeling you generate by deciding to feel it. It's a relationship you build with yourself. Slowly, through action, through honesty, through the accumulation of evidence that you can be trusted to take care of yourself. Feelings follow that evidence. They don't precede it. The second thing I want to say about self-love is that most people are trying to feel it in exactly the conditions that make it impossible. Here's what I mean. The moments when self-love is hardest, when the voice in your head is cruelest, when you feel most unlovable, those moments are almost always triggered by something external. A relationship, a rejection, someone's reaction to you, the way someone looked at you or didn't. And in those moments, the instruction to love yourself feels not just difficult, but almost insulting. Like being told to swim while you're drowning. But here's the thing nobody says clearly enough. Self-love isn't what you feel when everything is fine. It's what you do when everything isn't. It's not the warm feeling. It's the choice, in the moment when you feel most worthless, to act as if you matter anyway. To eat the meal, to take the rest, to say the honest thing instead of the people-pleasing thing, to leave the room that is making you smaller, not because you feel worthy, but because you've decided to practice treating yourself as if you are, until the feeling catches up with the behavior. A woman I'll call Petra described self-love as something she could access on good days. On bad days, she said, "I can't reach it. It's like it's not available." I told her, the bad days are not when self-love fails. They're when it's tested. And every time you act with care toward yourself on a bad day, even one small action, You're building something that the good day version of self-love can never build. The reframe. Self-love is not a resource you access. It's a practice you return to, especially when it's hardest, especially when you least feel it. The return itself is the practice. Now I want to talk about something that almost never gets said in conversations about self-love. The part that makes it genuinely difficult, not because you're doing it wrong, but because of what it actually requires. Real self-love requires you to disappoint people, not occasionally, regularly, as a feature, not a bug. Because the version of you that other people are most comfortable with, the version that says yes when it means no, that makes itself smaller to avoid conflict, that prioritizes other people's comfort over its own truth, that version is not you loving yourself. That version is you managing other people's feelings at your own expense. And it often feels like kindness. It often looks like kindness. But underneath it is a quiet belief that your actual needs, your actual limits, your actual self are too much, too demanding, too risky to reveal. A client I'll call Simone was one of the most generous people I have ever worked with. Everyone in her life relied on her. She was the person people called, the one who showed up, the one who never said no. She came to me because she was exhausted, and quietly, beneath the exhaustion, she was furious at everyone she'd ever helped for needing her so much. I asked her when she had last said no to someone she loved, for no reason other than that she simply didn't want to do the thing. She thought for a very long time. Then she said, "I don't think I have." The reframe. If you cannot disappoint people without it feeling like a moral failure, you are not practicing self-love. You are practicing self-erasure and calling it virtue. The ability to disappoint someone you love, calmly and without excessive guilt, is one of the clearest measures of how much you actually value yourself. I want to pause here and ask you something. Think about the last time you did something, said yes, stayed quiet, went along with something, not because you wanted to, but because you were afraid of what would happen if you didn't. What were you actually afraid of? Not the surface answer, the one underneath. That fear, whatever it is the thing that self-love actually has to address, not the affirmations, not the morning routine, that specific fear. The fourth thing, and this is the one most people actively resist. Self-love requires you to stop outsourcing your sense of worth to other people's responses to you. This is the core of it, the deepest layer, the place where most personal development work stops just short of going. When your sense of being okay, being lovable, being enough, depends on how someone treats you today, what they say to you, whether they stay or leave, your self-love has no stable ground. It is entirely contingent, entirely dependent on external conditions that are, by their nature, unpredictable. This is why a relationship ending can feel like annihilation rather than loss. It's not just that you've lost the person. You've lost the primary source of evidence that you're worth loving. A woman I'll call Nina came to me 6 months after a relationship ended. She said, "I know logically that I'm a capable person. I have a career, I have friends, I have a life. But since he left, I feel like none of it counts." That's not grief. That's what happens when someone else has been holding the answer to the question, "Am I enough?" And the terrifying, liberating truth is this: no one can hold that answer for you permanently. They will leave. They will change. They will have their own bad days when they cannot reflect your worth back to you. And if your sense of yourself lives in their hands, you will spend every relationship quietly terrified of the moment they stop holding it. The reframe. Self-love is not self-esteem that depends on what you achieve or who stays. It's the slow, deliberate process of becoming the person who holds the answer to "Am I enough?" yourself. Not because you've earned it, not because someone confirmed it, because you've decided, quietly and without fanfare, that you're going to stop waiting for external permission to believe it. Here's what I want to leave you with tonight. Self-love is not a feeling. It's not a state you achieve. It's not something you either have or don't have. It's a practice. A daily, imperfect, sometimes clumsy practice of choosing yourself. Not over everyone else, but alongside them. Of acting with care toward yourself in the moments when you feel least deserving of it. Of building slowly the evidence that you can be trusted to take care of the person you are. That evidence accumulates. It doesn't announce itself loudly, but over time, over months, over years, it changes what feels possible, what feels safe, who you allow close, what you're willing to tolerate, what you're finally willing to leave. It starts not with a feeling, but with a decision. A quiet, private decision that you are going to act as if you matter, before you fully believe it. And keep acting that way until the belief has no choice but to follow. If this landed somewhere real for you, pass it to someone who might need to hear it tonight. And if you want to keep going deeper, I'm here every day. Next time, I want to talk about what happens when you start to love yourself more, and the relationships around you start to change in ways you didn't expect. Some of them get better, some of them end. And understanding why is one of the most important things you can prepare for.
That's all for tonight.